I don't really know T. I knew of T.
Right.
Because when I was kicking it with Meech, him and T were like beefing. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad they worked it out.
Beautiful.
But the 2 times I met T the 2 times I talked to T was the first time I was at a party with Puff.
Do you watch BMF?
I haven't. I seen some passing. But
Why
I
you
haven't
not
said
actually
that.
a producer on that?
Me?
Yeah.
Honestly?
Consulting?
Nah, man, because it's too tricky.
It's affiliated. Like whenever people hear BMF, they always say the first artist of BMF was Jeezy. You know what I'm saying?
Which is not true, but yeah.
It's not true, but I mean, on a national level.
Da Vinci.
Oh, he was the first artist?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't break
I was
nationally,
never
right?
a BMF artist.
BMF's story, from rags to riches, is one that has enchanted hip-hop for a long time. The Black Mafia family and their leadership have been name-dropped on countless tracks over the years. Most recently, they are the inspiration behind the 50 Cent-produced Starz TV series BMF. Black Mafia family, abbreviated as BMF, was the brainchild of Demetrius and Terry Flenory, better known as Big Meech and Southwest T. Apart from getting involved in street business, the two brothers ventured into the murky hip-hop scene. Over time, after taking over the streets, Meech's familiarity with hip-hop stars and love of music would mutate into a pet project, BMF Entertainment. Launched in 2000, BMF served as both a record label and a promotional company. They only signed one artist in Blue Da Vinci, but the nascent label's connections were so strong that his debut album contained features from some of the era's biggest names. Another artist who benefited greatly from Meech's patronage was Jeezy. Although Jeezy never formally signed to the label, the Flenory support and proceeds bolstered his early career, effectively making him part and parcel of that gang. He was very instrumental in Jeezy's early career around 2003, said Marla Shellhoop, author of BMF, The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family. What he did in Atlanta was promote a lot of parties for Jeezy and helped get his music spread around to all the strip clubs, which is how rappers would make it or break it. He supplied fancy cars and crazy medallion pendants for video shoots, and Jeezy was really open about his very tight relationship with Big Meech. You know, Jeezy shows up in all these promotional videos in which he's shouting out the Black Mafia family and Meech. Back in 2008, Jeezy's name came up during testimony in a federal cocaine conspiracy case against alleged Black Mafia family associate Fleming Ill Daniels. BMF member Ralphie Sims testified that the rapper, whose real name is Jay Jenkins, received kilos of cocaine from the criminal organization. Sims described an incident in 2004 when he was ordered by high-ranking BMF members Chad J-Bo Brown and Martiz Tito Berth to set aside multi-kilo cocaine shipments for 2 customers. When asked who those customers were, Jeezy was named. But now that Big Meech is out and Jeezy reportedly ditched him when he was in jail, the streets have it that Meech is planning on going for Jeezy's head, a true testament of a friend-turned-enemy. Born in Detroit during an economic depression, the brothers soon realized that there wouldn't be many opportunities to escape their circumstances. As a result, they began dealing drugs during their high school days. Initially, they were selling $50 bags of cocaine to locals, although this would seem paltry compared to what they'd one day be moving. The two first worked under the banner of E.D. Boyd's 50 Boys crew. Eventually, they got his permission to expand their operations. E.D. later told Vlad TV that this move didn't cause any friction, as it was what he'd intended for the duo from the outset. I told them, I groomed you from day one to be bosses, so this day was coming. That's the same thing I did. I'm not in the long haul to be nobody's worker, and that's what I instilled in them. Everything that I taught them boys, the family values, taking their crews to the mall, they took that shift from the 50 boys, they took that S to BMF. I groomed them well. That said, their rise wasn't without incident. In the embryonic days of the business, Southwest T lost his eye in a shooting. The assailant's identity remains unknown to this day. Years on, T was shot 4 times by opportunistic armed robbers during a visit to a restaurant in Detroit. Big Meech, meanwhile, weathered a hail of bullets from Layden Beast Simon, the real-life counterpart of Lamar in the TV show, following the death of Simon's nephew. They say it was like 18 times, Simon told Vlad TV. Some people say he got hit in the neck and in the stomach, and S. He disrespected me, so he got his ass lit up for running his mouth. After that, everywhere I went, they just run. Once they'd set up their own conglomerate, which remained unnamed for many years, the siblings began to recruit others. Before long, they'd outgrown their home base of the Motor City. They moved to Atlanta, where the brothers, Demetrius in particular, would begin to make a name for themselves. "I've been around a place like Atlanta for a long time," Meech said in an interview from jail. "I have lived there since the 1990s. Been there since 1988. I didn't have the problems other people had. I was through a lot of things. Almost 90% of the cities I touched down in, I had nothing but love. So it was never no problems. And we don't do no robbing, we just never had no problems. When you get a crew that's hungry, they might turn on you." The Black Mafia family continued to grow to the extent that they were alleged to have strongholds in Alabama, California, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, and Tennessee. They reportedly had over 500 affiliates on their payroll across the entirety of the U.S. In addition to their grip on America, the Flanoris were closely affiliated with Mexican drug cartels. At the height of their power, they were purchasing over 50 kilos a fortnight. Edie Boyd has maintained that Big Meech wanted everyone to know that he was a major player in the drug game. As a result, Meech regularly liaised with many of hip-hop's biggest stars of the era. The crew became renowned for their extravagant partying. There were tales of evenings with Puff, a story about blocking Jay-Z's car purely to force him to ask their permission to move them. Meech is actually in the video for Jules Santana's "Make It Work For You," after they linked up during a trip to Harlem. Although some stars courted their friendship, others, such as 50 Cent, steered clear. I first heard about BMF in 2003. 50 Cent told DJ Drama in 2019 on Sirius XM. They were so embedded into the music business because when you can find your pockets, people like you around. When you at the nightclub and Puffy can't buy champagne because you bought all of it, they start to have to speak to you. I stayed away from it because I know who I am, and I know how easy it is for me to... I might have bought something, or it would be easy enough for people to make me involved without me being involved. I was doing too well. They would reach out to me and I would avoid it because it just wasn't good for where I was at. Where they'd previously been a tight-knit unit, Meech's flashiness led to a rift opening up between Southwest T and Meech. This led to an informal split. T ventured to the West Coast to head up operations in LA, while Meech remained at the base in Atlanta. Although the cause of the problem is not public knowledge, BMF capo J-Bo has said that Terry was diluting the cocaine in order to undercut Meech. When people began complaining, the beef between them intensified. Reportedly, by the time that the FBI apprehended them, the siblings were not on speaking terms. Even as Meech made himself at home in hip-hop, it didn't mean that violence ceased. After a dispute over a girl bubbled over, the BMF crew was allegedly involved in the infamous murder of Diddy's bodyguard, Wolf Jones, at a nightclub in Atlanta. When they came outside, he shot Meech in them, and it caught him in the B, revealed bad boy head of security Gene Deal. Meech ain't want to do nothing to him. He had enough crew outside to deal with that. The dude who got close to Wolf, the dude that killed him, was the guy he got down with Brooklyn. He needed some money. He was a shooter. Wolf told Meech to put him on the payroll, and that's the dude who shot him. To more cynical onlookers, Big Meech's decision to venture into music was simply a means to launder money. Marla Shellhoop argues that the music wasn't a front, but rather a gateway to legitimizing BMF once and for all. He certainly was able to create a massive buzz, and that was in large part through massive amounts of money. But I think that he also had this charisma that was pretty much undeniable. People would either run the other way when these guys came into the club or be overjoyed because all the women would soon be drinking $600 bottles of champagne. Meech really had genuine hope that he could transition out of the drug game into a legitimate enterprise. And that's not an unusual trajectory. It's somewhat of a cliche, but for him, it was maybe a matter of timing. Later down the line, Meech localized similar sentiments during a rare interview from behind bars, stating, "All my friends were involved in the music business, like Puff, JD, Jeezy, Slim Thug, Nelly. These people were involved in music, and it made me want to be more hands-on. I saw how a lot of artists were getting jerked, and that's something I was going to change. once I got my foot all through the door. But the government saw me with my foot almost closing the door, and they ended up giving me these trumped-up charges. As is always the case, no empire of this nature can last forever. Once the FBI launched what was codenamed Operation Motor City Mafia in 2003, it was only a matter of time until the net closed in. In 2005, Meech and Southwest T were indicted under the CCE, or Continuing Criminal Enterprise Statute. This legal apparatus carries stringent sentences in the same vein as a RICO charge, often amounting to life imprisonment. The charges filed against the Flannery brothers were two of over 150 indictments relating to BMF. In doing so, the FBI essentially eradicated BMF's entire network. Even Jacob Arabov, better known in hip-hop circles as Jacob the Jeweler, was prosecuted for money laundering offenses. He eventually served 2 years in prison on a lesser charge of falsifying statements. According to the Department of Justice, at its peak during 2003 to 2004, the BMF was moving hundreds of kilograms of cocaine into Atlanta, Detroit, and other distribution hubs every month. The drugs would arrive in vehicles, often limousines, with secret compartments or traps. These same trap vehicles would then be filled with cash to be sent back to the Mexican sources of supply. In the process of the indictment, the feds seized $21 million worth of assets, including cash, jewelry, 13 homes in Metro Detroit, Georgia, and Los Angeles, and 36 vehicles. During the 2-year-long investigation, they accumulated over 900 pages of wiretapped conversations between Southwest T and others. Many of the conversations pertain to not just the operation, but Terry's fears over Meech's excessive partying and the attention it drew. In November 2007, the brothers pleaded guilty to running a continuing criminal enterprise involving the large-scale distribution of cocaine throughout the United States from 1990 through 2005. By doing so, they got a 30-year sentence. Robert Corso, who was in charge of the case, claimed at the time that it demonstrates that no matter how large the operation or how much money a drug trafficker makes illegally, eventually the law and justice will catch up. This community and communities across the United States are safer with the brothers Flannery behind bars. As of now, the brothers are all out, and it seems they still want to cause trouble in the streets, just like they did years ago. But will they succeed this time? Only time will tell. And that's it from us today. Until next time. Thank you for watching.